What are the functions of a political party? The political party is supposed to bring people together to develop policies favorable to their interests or the groups that support them, and to organize and persuade voters to elect their candidate into office. The basic purpose of a political party is to nominate candidates for public office and to get as many of them elected as possible. Once elected, these officials try to achieve the goals of their party through legislation and program initiatives. Right now, there are 4 parties in New York State, okay, the Democratic, that have ballot access. There's the Democratic Party, there's the Republican Party, there's the Working Families Party, there's the Conservative Party. So in order to qualify as an official party in New York State, that party has to have a candidate on the ballot in the last presidential election who garnered at least 130,000 votes, or at least 2% of the total votes cast, whichever is greatest. It must also have had a candidate on the ballot for the last gubernatorial election who garnered at least 130,000 votes, or again, 2% of the total votes cast, whichever is greater. So those are the prerequisites in order to be an official party in New York State. So what we're all here is to discover who and what are these party elected positions. We're going to start with the responsibilities of judicial delegates, because I think we all know, a lot of us go to the polling site, we see these positions on our ballot, we don't know what they do, we don't know how they impact our community, and we're unsure of how to vote. But the more we learn about them, the better we can select the right person for the job. So there is a party position called judicial delegate. And what they do is, their role is electing Supreme Court justices. And those decisions affect all of us. Across the state, the Supreme Court judges preside over the most complex civil and criminal proceedings in the state, impacting thousands of lives. So it's very important for us, when we're selecting folks for that position, to keep that in mind. In each assembly district, voters elect judicial delegates, residents whose sole job is to represent their neighborhoods at a party nominating convention held a few weeks after they're elected. At these conventions, which unite delegates from across various assembly districts within one larger judicial district. So a judicial district is bigger than an assembly district, because there's a lot of assembly districts in there. So they come together and they vote who's going to be their party's nomination. Now, keep in mind, whoever they select runs in the general election that November. So these are the judges that are going to sit in that seat for 14 years. So that's why these party positions are very, very powerful positions to have. Hold on just a second. Oops. The next position we're going to talk about is the state committee member. The state committee member comes together with other members and they vote as a committee to pass resolutions, which in effect become the party's platform. The state committee determines what races money is spent on. They also endorse statewide candidates such as governor, AG, controller, those kinds of races. And those endorsements carry a considerable amount of weight because they're providing the candidates with voter data, money, and, like, in some cases, campaign staff. District leaders, which you have 2 district leaders with you today. You have me and you have Mr. William Smith.
And you also have you also have Ernestine in there.
Oh, Ernestine is here?
Ernestine Bell, correct.
Hi, Ernestine. We may have to pull you up to say a few things too. So district leaders identify and champion the community's needs before elected officials and government agencies. District leaders have no legislative authority or budget. So we have no money coming to us for the work that we do in the community. But we are often successful in advocating for both legislation and funding related, like things related to the community's needs by working closely with our neighborhood elected officials. District leaders are members of the executive committee. District leaders have the responsibility of staffing poll sites within the district they represent for both the primary and general election. They also identify and encourage candidates for other party positions, such as county committee. Now, this is a very important position that it just doesn't get a lot of like publicity, but county committee members are like the basic building blocks for our political governance in New York City, and were originally created so that New Yorkers can have a real say in their political parties. County committee members are elected officials. The full county committee is made up of 2 to 4 people per election district. Now, each election district is about 1 to 3 block, as a 1 to 3 block area. Members of county committee have the power to choose local judges, appoint candidates when an elected official vacates their seat before the end of their term, choose which candidate the party will run for local office in certain special elections. Now, keep in mind, we just had like a couple of special elections on the state level in which this happened. In the 68th, that happened. Robert Rodriguez, assemblyman in the 68th, appointed to Secretary of State. So we had to have a special election. And so county committees stepped in and had to vote for their nominee to run against the Republican, the other Democrat, if there was someone from the Conservative Party, which I don't think there was anyone from the Conservative Party in that race, they would run against them in a special election. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't have to run in a primary election at some point. The person who won in the 68th, he now has to run again during the primary election in June against other Democrats who may want that seat as well. So these are all very powerful positions. And that leads us to our speakers. So I'm going to start out with William Smith, since he is the district leader in the 68th Assembly District. And William, can you speak up about how you became a district leader, when you learned about the position, and what you enjoy most about it, and what you still struggle with a little bit?
Oh, well, thank you, Madam District Leader.
Turn down your, sorry about that. Take down your screen, Pamela.
Sure.
Okay, we can actually let it go. Take the whole, there you go.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to participate in this discussion with you. It's actually my first WEAC event to be a part of, so thank you so much for the opportunity. I know, Bailey, I've known you for many years, seen you in the community, so all of you have been doing so much great work, and it's really critical now that we have these conversations, so thank you for that. So I've been involved. I'm an elected member of the Democratic Party as a county committee member since 2013. I got on county committee as part of an initiative with Manhattan Young Democrats, which is called the Open Seat Project. So it's part of that project. You know, they gave me the overview of the election law, the petitioning requirements, and all that. So I got a lot of that information that you'll be discussing in your next training. It was required that I get about 25 to 30 signatures. I got 110. because I figured that they were, that I would probably get challenged and bumped off the ballot. Fortunately, I was able to make the ballot, and I've been on county committee since 2013, and I've had re-elections in 2015, 2017, and 2019. All times have been successful. Actually, in 2017, the district leader, so just to let you know, so I'm the district leader for Executive Part D in the 68th Assembly District. In Manhattan, we are broken up in executive parts. The rest of the city, district leader is assembly district-wide, but in Manhattan, we're broken up in executive parts. So I'm executive part D. That's the northern part of East Harlem. I live in executive part C. So just so you know, you can run and be a district leader within your assembly district and not live in the respective executive part that you're looking to represent. So I live in one election district and I'm a county committee member there, but then 2 blocks over, I'm the district leader. Petitioning is a really important process. It gives you an opportunity to get a sense for what's going on. The people are afforded and they're given an audience to outline some of the issues that they want to see addressed. When I petitioned for district leader, I saw that there was great discouragement amongst the voters in terms of their ability to impact the political process. And I just encourage them to understand that their voice can have an impact, but that we have to work together to build the capacity of our party and our communities. So that's the reason why I ran for district leaders, because I noticed, like Pamela, you mentioned, many times, even before I was involved in politics, I would see names on the ballot. I didn't know who they were. And I would see judges on the ballot. I was not well aware of that. And it bothered me, and especially during the whole diversity, racial justice discussion, that no one was talking about the impact that we can have through politics in the judicial system. District leaders can not only improve the voting capacity of their districts, which is our responsibility. We're supposed to work on getting people registered to vote. We're supposed to educate people about the party and promote the party. We're supposed to be the big cheerleaders. However, we can have an even greater piece in the movement if we educate people about, like Pamela, what you just outlined, and thank you for that, the impact that district leaders have on the judicial process. So when I became a district leader, I also ran for judicial delegate. I was not successful. Actually, I lost by 700 votes in my by another young Democrat. So it was encouraging to see that she was able to afford her first opportunity to participate. But regardless of the fact of me not being a judicial delegate, I still received calls from candidates for county Supreme Court in hopes that I would reach out and voice my support for them with various judicial delegates that I knew. Now, ironically, because as everyone knows, when you're in this process, you meet so many people throughout the years, you end up knowing people all across your county or across the city. So luckily, I knew a lot of people in different ADs. I was able to reach out to them and just encourage them to hear out these judicial candidates. So that's one way that you can have an impact. But the more important part right now for all of us is that we analyze and look at the voter turnout in our respective assembly districts. In East Harlem, only 21% of the registered Democrats in the 2020 primary during the pandemic voted. Only 21%. I think those numbers are outrageous, given the fact that in our communities, we hear all of our neighbors complain about the lack of resources, the lack of energy, and the lack of attention to their issues. But where's the incentive for government to respond to them if they don't vote? So I know it's a little lengthy, but the reason why I'm here, reason why the voters gave me this unique privilege, which I'm extremely thankful for, so that way we can increase the voter capacity in our community. That's the main objective. If people understand why they need to vote, if they understand the structures of government and the political process, and they can understand where they can have a piece of equity in that, I'm strongly of the opinion that we will be able to increase voter turnout, but that's only one part of the puzzle.
That's wonderful. So, question. The 68th is your district. So were you there for the convention? I mean, when they were trying to figure out who would be the nominee for the assembly district, and what was that process like?
Sure. So yes, I was an attendee. I actually was a part of the proceedings. I was responsible for nominating the chairperson of the meeting for that special election. It was on a Saturday. It was in Johnson Community Center. It was a rainy day. The experience, it was a very contentious meeting. There were a lot of back and forth in terms of which candidate would represent and embody the ideals of East Harlem. Though all of the candidates who put their name forward, regardless of anyone's opinion, all had met the candidacies had merit. And I'll tell you, it was encouraging to see so many people step forward and understand that their voice and their perspective could add value to our community. It was a interesting learning experience. You were able to see the importance right then and there of why we need to have the right county committee members in these positions, regardless of their political affiliation. Because we, like I said, we need the right people. And when I say the right people, we want people to vote for candidates not based on their affiliation with their respective club. We want them to vote on what is your plan for the community. So the narrative for me, when I talk to resident leaders, when I spoke to the candidates, is pretty much, what is your plan? And we were able to see people, the attendees talk a little bit about their plan, but that it's still an ongoing discussion.
Okay, so Craig said, Mr. Smith, I've lived in East Harlem. Those numbers, 21%, is definitely outrageous. What ideas do you and your affiliates have in mind to increase those numbers?
Pamela, I just wanted to just make sure you introduce Stanley.
Oh, yes, Stanley is next. Stanley is next after this question.
I'm here.
I
I'm
have
here.
tons of questions for him. He knows I do.
All right.
Sure.
So quickly, if you don't mind, can you tell us, does anyone in your group have a plan in place to increase those numbers?
Right now, the plan is, for one, is to switch out the county committee, not only in my executive part, but in the other executive parts where possible, to ensure that we get more active people to get out into the street to get people registered to vote. To answer your question, the plan is for us to have these workshops like this one in each development where possible, but just seeing how we can do that given the COVID protocols.
Okay, so if anyone wants to sign up for that and to help out in that way, please hit me up in the chat so then I can work with Mr. William Smith on this, WEACT and William Smith, to increase those numbers in East Harlem. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith, and please hang around. We may have more questions later on. So next up is Mr. Stanley Schlein, and he is an election lawyer known throughout New York City. He corrected me and said he is the king and queen maker of New York City. And he also participated in a lot of political situations throughout the city. So Mr. Schlein, I'd like you to introduce yourself, and also if you can share information about the structure of the executive board in the Bronx for the Bronx Democratic Party, so that people get an idea of what the structure of political executive boards look like in general. I mean, they're all a little bit different because their bylaws might be slightly different, but I think they pretty much have similarities. And if you could go into detail with what you know, I would appreciate that.
Certainly, and thank you so very much for inviting me and wanting my participation in this overwhelming, important community-based organization and citywide activities that you engage in. First of all, I'm blessed not to, as I said jocularly at the beginning, not to have my face on this, and I apologize for that. But this is my 50th year in organized politics in the city of New York. And you asked the question earlier, why am I a king and or queen maker? Michael Bloomberg asked me that question once before, and I made a very simple statement, and it applies to the activities we are all engaged in. Those who know the rules win. And it is imperative to understand the rules of the game that you are playing. That's what an election lawyer does. That's what an organized person in politics should know: the rules of their party, the rules of the state of New York, the election law, and the combination of those and how they interact to be able to effectuate the outcome of elections. So, as an example, the reason I use the word king and queen, as Pamela will understand and well recognize, let's talk about the judiciary for the moment. The Bronx Democratic Party has managed over the last several years, and perhaps I would say over the last 10 years, now to elect a fully transparent and gender, ethnic, and geographically diverse judiciary. The Bronx now is majority women on the bench and people of color on the bench, meaning both the civil court and the Supreme Court. Those are the two electoral judicial positions that the body politic effectuates. Criminal court judges and family court judges are appointed by the mayor. But the elected positions in Bronx County now for the judiciary are majority women and people of color. That diversity I am very proud of to have participated and to help facilitate. The rules of the party, and I just want to correct our last speaker just a little bit, the districts which are done on assembly district bases and district leaders are elected on whole assembly districts, except for New York County. It's also that way for Queens County. They have split districts as well, and they are drawing their lines as we speak to split their districts in various parts, as they have done in New York County. The county committee membership, as you said earlier, Pamela, is structured on a election district basis. And as the redistricting process is coming to a conclusion in Albany, they are voting tomorrow on the congressional lines, and they will vote Thursday on the Assembly and Senate district lines. The maps were issued publicly today for Assembly and Senate. You can go online and upload that so you can see district by district what the new lines are likely to look like. But when they finish voting on those lines, the Board of Elections is charged with the responsibility of creating election districts within those assembly district lines. In my conversations as late as today, the law now states that there will be a maximum of 2,000 voters in each election district. Board of Elections is going to reduce that maximum in the work they undertake to less than 1,700 voters per district. And to give you a pictorial about that for your mindset, 1,700 voters, enrolled voters in the party, meaning Democratic voters and the Republican voters as well. Looking at a district such as the 82nd in Bronx County, which is Co-op City and Throgs Neck. Co-op City, each building will be in a separate separate election district, and there are certainly less than 1,700, but close to that number in those districts. And they will be drawing those lines. Those lines will be completed within the next 3.5 weeks, and just about in time for the petitions to be circulated for this year's primary elections for Senate, Assembly, and Congress. And so it is a very tight squeeze and a lot of work day and night and weekends. The Board of Elections is engaging in that process starting on Thursday with the vote for the redistricted lines. The process for the party structure which is basically what Pamela has called upon me to talk about, is as follows. The county committee is the basic root of all party structure. And thereafter, the judicial delegates sideways, state committee sideways, but percolating up the top of the food chain are district leaders. Those district leaders engage in the election of what's called the party leader. The executive committee chairperson and the county committee chairperson is elected by the county committee members, and they also have a vote on the executive committee. Those positions will be elected in this August, which is what the law requires. And for the first time, you are going to see all 5 counties elect at its organizational meeting in 2022. As you may recall, in 2021, both New York County and Richmond County, Staten Island, had the opportunity to defer its normal schedule for election of its organizational meeting for 1 year because of the COVID endemic. And consequently, both New York County and Staten Island agreed to defer its elections for 1 year. So all these organizational meetings will occur in 2022, this year, by their respective county organizations.
So I just want to make sure.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, interrupt me at any point in time.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand this. So every single county, every single borough in New York City is going to be voting on county leadership this August.
That is correct. And
Wow.
again, it would have been that way, Pamela, for this year for the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. But because of the deferral that I described a few moments ago, you add to that New York County and Richmond County, Staten Island. So all 5 counties are electing or re-electing old leadership or electing new leadership this August.
Very interesting. Now, this is another topic that I'm not sure if you're going to want to discuss, but I'm so hoping you're going to want to discuss this. The Rainbow Rebellion. I wasn't exactly there for that, but my understanding was that county committee members decided that they weren't happy with their county leader and then created a revolt and voted him out. Exactly how did that happen in the Bronx?
That was a euphemism that was given to us by a reporter for the Daily News called the Rainbow Rebellion. And what had happened was Jose Rivera who was still a member of the assembly, but was the county leader at that time, was less than gracious, I'll use that term of art, to his colleagues in government, to his colleagues on the political level of the Bronx Democratic Party, and basically threatened to challenge all of them in an election and put candidates up against the incumbents. Equally, he ran a candidate for a civil court judge who was the wife, Pamela, of a person who is your current state senator, against a person by the name of Elizabeth Taylor, an African-American woman, a very, very competent attorney at that time. And so there was a challenge on every level. And what had happened was that the county committee members banded together and elected in that challenge period, it's 11 years ago, the following people. They elected Carl Hastie as the county leader. They elected Ruben Diaz Jr. as the borough president. They elected Elizabeth Taylor, as I said moments ago, as a civil court judge. And as a result thereof, Aurelia Green was made deputy borough president in this rather over-the-top rebellion of elected officials. And quite successfully, it was a grassroots effort, ground up. And it was an exciting, exciting moment in the political history of Bronx County for the Democratic Party.
And see, that's the point that I wanted to bring home here, that county committee people have power when organized. If you see something that's wrong and you don't like it, they can band together like that rebellion in the Bronx and make the change that they want for their community. Thank you, Mr.
There is no question about that. No question about that. And again, I'll take any questions that are referred to me, but I'm trying to, this is transparency for me, and I'm very honored to be part of your meeting. So
I'm so loving this. So does anyone have any questions about the executive board, about the Rainbow Rebellion? Any questions whatsoever, folks?
You can either put your hands up or Rick would use the hand function, or put your question in the chat.
Okay, I see William Smith's hand up.
Oh, so I was really interested to learn, do you have any details on what the vote count was like against then County Leader Rivera when he lost the seat?
I'll tell you a little bit of historical gossip, if I may.
Yes.
So, okay, there was the come to, you know, moment meeting to be held in the, if you know, anyone knows the Bronx well, the old Bronx Paradise Theater on the Grand Concourse. It's now a Creflo Dollar, facility. It's right on the Grand Concourse off of Fordham Road. The meeting was there, held there. County committee members attended from all parts of the Bronx, and Jose Rivera and his legions started to bus people in who were never elected. And they literally were fistfights over the control. Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Someone needs to mute.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
There were physical confrontations over the control of the sign-in books, and a former council member at that time, Maria Baez, tried to take control of, grab the microphone, and basically gavelled in the meeting. And within minutes, said, "All those in favor of Jose Rivera, say aye." And their bust-in non-members of the county committee said aye. And then they stormed out. They said they controlled the meeting, and that resulted in a litigation that went on trial before a Supreme Court judge who was not an elected judge from the Bronx, to keep that effort very open and transparent. And the trial lasted 5 days. And at the end of the day, the judge declared in his decision, Maria Baez was no more than a person with a megaphone, and they found everything that was done right by the Carl Hastie troops to be worthy of respect, everything done by the Jose Rivera people to be rejected, and Carl Hastie became the leader of the party. And unfortunately, the last act that they did was steal the treasury. And so we started at ground zero fresh, as I described who was elected, but the county committee members were all testified at that trial and declared what had happened was absolutely borderline criminal activity. And the judge agreed, and that was what happened.
Wow. So Miss Peggy Shepard, our executive director, she has a question in the chat, but I'm hoping that she'll unmute and ask the question if she's able to. Okay, so I guess she's not able to unmute, but
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
I wanted to know what the difference is when there's a vacancy between a special election and a county committee election.
Certainly. Let me try to simplify it. Under the election law, if a vacancy occurs in the position of member of assembly or state senator, the election law requires, and all party rules of all the 5 counties equally speak to the same process, that there is a meeting held on notice to all the county committee members of that district, whether it's the Senate district, which was done recently with the lieutenant governors leaving his state senate position, Brian Benjamin, or as what was just done in the 68th in the instance of Robert Rodriguez's extension to the position of Secretary of State. The county committee members of those districts vote for the nomination of the political party. So consequently, there's a nominee right now, and an special election was recently held of the result of that county committee nomination for assembly. Same thing for state senator. Now, they will serve until the end of this calendar year, irrespective of what happens in the forthcoming primary and general election. The replacement for Robert Rodriguez, who was just elected in the special election, will serve as member of the Assembly through December 31, 2022. And that's what happens. Now, there is a different rule for city council. Under the New York City Charter, city council vacancies are held in a special election, and it's a nonpartisan election. So the Democratic Party leadership, county committee members, district leaders, county leaders do not participate in that process. It's a different law. So only for senator and assembly members do we have the kind of meetings I just described. Is
Okay,
that clearer? Hopefully, it's clearer.
I think so. Mr. Schlein, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to hang on because we're going a little bit over, but we have one more speaker from the Republican Party. He's actually a really good friend of mine. We ran against one another for public office. I think it was about 3 years ago. And somewhere running against one another, we became friends, even though we're from different parties, but we both live in the Bronx and we both love the Bronx. And I think that's why we were able to develop a friendship. So I want to introduce Mr. Patrick Delise from the Republican Party, and he is a vice president at the Republican Party. So Patrick, are you there?
I am here.
Great, Patrick. So if you could introduce yourself, and if you could talk about your executive board and what you guys do on the executive level.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pamela WEAC, for inviting me to this wonderful discussion. Thank you, fellow panelists, for the information you presented. And thank you, participants, for participating in this conversation. As Pamela mentioned, my name is Patrick Delise. I'm a member of the Republican Party, served as vice president of the Bronx GOP, ran for several offices, the last being the congressional seat in the 15th Congressional District against Richie Torres. As people may know, the 15th Congressional District is the poorest congressional district in the United States. And basically my district, whether it's the 84th Assembly District, whether it's the 17th City Council District, whether it's the 32nd State Senate District, where I ran against Pamela or Pamela ran against me, or whether it's the 15th.
We both ran against the other guy.
True indeed. True, we had him sweating for a while.
We did.
So it was fun. So basically, my districts is primarily located in the South Bronx. And as all of us know, the South Bronx have a lot of issues, which has yet to abate itself. And I went to high school in the South Bronx in the Grand Concourse at Cardinal Hayes during the 80s. And I've been very active in the South Bronx and also in Harlem, where I was born and raised. And time again, I look at our community, and the issue of violence dominates our community. The issue of poverty dominates our community. The issue of food insecurity dominates our community. The issue of environmental injustice dominates our community. And we could go on and on and on. South Bronx has the highest asthma rate. And yet, why is this ongoing? The South Bronx, or the borough of the Bronx, has the highest criminal activity rates out of all the boroughs in New York City. But it goes on and on and on, despite individuals that we elect, because there's a tendency that we elect people who are popular, but oftentimes those individuals who are popular are not productive, especially if time and time again, we have situations in our neighborhood that are ongoing. As an example, there's a particular park, beautiful park in the South Bronx, and I used to work out in that park quite often until there was a discovery of a young lady chopped up in different body pieces in a garbage bag.
Oh my goodness. So
these are the things that we need to really flush out and really empower the people in our community, and also to improve our community. One last example, the park across the street from where I live at, in front of that park, garbage. And when I mean garbage, I'm talking about beds. I'm talking about trash cans, garbage cans, literally dumped in front of the park for sanitation to pick up. So these are environmental injustices, which compounds the other injustices in which I mentioned that's happening in the South Bronx time and time and time again. And it's just a situation, I don't care if you're Democrat, Independent, Republican, Conservative, that if you really care about your neighborhood, and if you really love yourself, love your family, and love the neighborhood that you live in, we need to change what's happening in our neighborhood for the better and for the positive.
I agree. So I wanted to ask you like a little bit more about, so were you always a Republican, or did you move to the Republican Party as an adult?
I did a Mike Bloomberg, and I did a Eric Adams in reverse. At first, I was a Democrat, liberal Democrat. Then I became independent. Then I became a Republican for a lot of reasons. One major reason is the historical legacy of the Republican Party as an anti-slavery party. And also it's the party of Frederick Douglass. Same thing with Booker T. Washington. He was a conservative, but he was about economic empowerment. Frederick Douglass was about political empowerment. And also the fact that I said to myself, I looked at the situation, the political and economic situation and the environmental situation in the South Bronx. And I said to myself time and time again, people in the South Bronx tend to vote or keep voting for those in the Democratic Party without doing any type of investigation or educating themselves politically about the candidate. And when I ran for office, I would always get, why are you running as a Republican? Oh, you must be down with Donald Trump and you down with the Republicans because they represent a particular, what people would say, a racist or point of view. And that's not my point of view in terms of becoming a Republican. I'm about making positive changes in my neighborhood and in my community. And as you know, Pamela, on my website, and something that I marketed when I was running for office is that we should not vote for the party. We should vote for the person, because there's individuals like myself, like yourself, who have a very strong, love for our neighborhood and for our people, that we want positive changes in our neighborhood. And yet, because someone is popular, that doesn't mean they're productive, but there's a tendency that we vote for individuals that are popular, in particularly if they come from the Democratic Party, and we don't hold these individuals accountable. And my position is, I don't care who you are and what party you're from, every politician in New York City or throughout the United States, the people should hold them accountable, because it's government by the people, not by individual politicians who may do the bidding of real estate agencies and corporate entities.
Okay, so we have one hand raised. William, do you have a question? Or is your hand still up from the last question?
From the last question, but I'll just use this as my opportunity then. Patrick, I appreciate your insight, and you mentioned a lot of the challenges that we have, but we've been saying this for so many years, probably even before I was born, and I'm born in '87. What can we do this cycle and moving forward to change it, so we're not just talking about these issues and we can see some gradual or progressive improvement on these on the challenges that we face every day? What's your opinion on that from the GOP's perspective?
I like that question a lot, William. And one way is by having forums like this that's presented by REACT, getting a lot of organizations like REACT and others that have different mission statements and different focuses, and having them come together and look at the situation in the Bronx and coming up with viable solutions and not sound bites. And again, holding our politicians accountable. But one of the main things, William, is that we got to speak the truth to the young Black and Latino youth. And that's Wu-Tang, but we have to get them involved. We have to educate them politically, because I know when I was a teenager, I didn't want to deal with politics. My attitude was politics is corrupt. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. So we need to get the younger generation involved in politics and educate them about politics. And it's pretty much the slide that Pamela presented. The younger generation, they need to understand this, what it means to sit in boards, what it means to sit in committees, what does it take to run for political office. They need to have that type of understanding. In addition to that, given the fact that the Bronx, my congressional district, is the poorest congressional district in the United States, we need to also educate our people, in particular our young people, about finance. We need to educate folks about financial literacy, savings, credits, investment, employment opportunities. What does it mean to join the NYPD? What are the opportunities to join the NYPD? What does it mean to join the FDNY? What are the opportunities? What are the salaries? What are the advancement within these particular career paths? What is a pension? And we need to have that type of understanding. Not all of us, and I heard this again because I have tons of graduate degrees from many different schools, and I hear this a lot. Not all of us are college bound. Not all of us will end up going to college or graduating college. So we need to look at different career paths that pay extremely well for the people in our neighborhood and in our community. And we also need to attract the Black and Latino doctors and have them live in our community. The Black and Latino college professors, principals, superintendents, chief of police, chief of the fire department, and have these individuals live in our community. So our younger folks, they don't only see the drug dealers or people committing crimes in our community and looking up to them, or those folks having some type of influence on them, but they can look up to the doctors, to the nurses, to the lawyers, to the CEOs, and these type of individuals coming back to our community and giving back to our community, not only financially, but having your presence there.
Absolutely. So we have one other person who has a question, Patrick, and that would be Lonnie, LJ. So LJ, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Thanks, Pam, for doing this. This is really informative. I just kind of have a question for anyone on the panel. But how do you rectify the differences between the local party platforms versus the state or national platforms, which is often a little more elevated and louder, I would say. The national platforms, for instance, you could take the GOP platform at the national level, is much more, we're well aware of what's going on there at the national level, and sometimes can be conflated with what's going on at the local level. So how do you guys rectify that, or is that something that you guys struggle with?
I'll weigh in on that briefly. Just to let you know, Manhattan, we do not have a party platform. If you look at the state party's website, they'll say what they stand for, and it's very disappointing considering all of the issues that all of you advocate for and want to see brought to the forefront. How do we reconcile it? We stop talking about all of these issues and we start getting in, pushing the envelope and changing our approach to advocacy and in reassessing how we organize politically.
Okay. Now, Craig, you have a question. I see your hand is up.
Yes. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Thank you for having me part of this discussion. I can relate to a lot of what's been shared here. I had a few questions briefly, and one is in respect to what are your thoughts in respect to a lot of the NYCHA housing facilities, like the rec center. So I've been doing some work with someone by the name of Aisha Saku. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with her. She runs SCR Street Corner Resources, known her for quite some time. I even actually spoke with Mr. Adams about it before he was elected. And, there's so many opportunities in our city and in certain areas where at one point in time back in the days, we had these rec centers and these facilities that were utilized for our youth. If you go to most of these facilities now today, they're closed, they're chained up, they're not being used. And there are no real outlets for our youth, right? I mean, the outlets are social media, joining gangs, hustling, things like that. And that goes back to the point that the gentleman who was just speaking, I'm sorry, Mr. Patrick.
Call me Patrick.
Patrick, correct.
Or you could call me PD, the original PD.
Okay, the original PD. And for me, it's a huge concern, being a father as well, and also switching gears in my career, pursue social justice and social equity, within our communities. But again, what are your thoughts on breaking those chains and utilizing those facilities for our youth, and having folks that are on this discussion being actively, engaged in mentoring and teaching our youth about finance? I have a finance background, a tech background. I also am the chapter president of a program called the Fight for Life, where we have 60 world championship boxers who are bringing a program to New York City, in which we're trying to roll it out to the youth in different communities, to teach them about life's applications, right? You can grow up, you can learn about life, but life without application leads to life frustration. That's kind of the motto. And, what are your thoughts on utilizing these centers and actually providing that kind of mentorship that you had, just mentioned as well?
Would you like me to answer that, or?
Sure. I mean, yeah, because I was, agreeing with what you were saying, with the lack of direction and structure and mentoring for our youth. They're turning to different avenues, which are not good avenues, and has increased, dramatically the crime rates in our city for our youth, and is a big problem.
Okay, so let's get the question answered.
No, I agree. Years ago, I was invited to a talk show, and I was asked a question by the reporter, and I answered the question. I said to the reporter, the South Bronx is a war zone. And the reporter looked at me in disbelief. And this was years ago. And again, when we look at what's happening in terms of the high crime rate in the Bronx and in Harlem and different parts of New York City, we need to show our youth that there's alternatives. And the way to do that is through education. I'm willing to speak to any organization where there's teenagers, young adults, to deliver a particular type of message, because they have to be exposed to different ways of knowing and different ways of living. When I ran for office, one of the things I proposed, and particularly for high school students, is not only for them to do internships in a field of interest, whether it's business, the arts, education, law, politics, but also to have them engage in some type of study abroad program. Have them move away temporarily from the neighborhood to see different cultures, to see different lifestyles, and expose them to the world so they could become global citizens and have a better understanding, so they could say to themselves, you know what, there's a world outside of the South Bronx, and I need to be a participant in that world, and provide them with the necessary model and avenue. One of the things I propose, in particular with the high school population, is have our high school students do some type of career assessment so we could properly guide them and channel them to particular careers and educate them about these careers. Same thing with job training. These things are vital, these things are important if one needs to sustain himself or herself in order to sustain their family, in order to sustain their community. And this is where we have to start.
Okay, so
Okay.
I have one more speaker to go, and thank you, Patrick. Please
Thank you.
stick around a little bit longer. I know there are more questions out there, but I've got to get to our last speaker, the Honorable Miss Ernestine Bell Temple. She is a district leader here in Manhattan. I know she wasn't on the flyer, she wasn't on the list, but once I saw that she was here, we needed that female voice for the female district leader's point of view. So Ernestine, are you prepared to share a few words with us, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Just listening to this conversation gives me so much hope and excitement. I go back probably 15 years in being a district leader. My district is Harlem, a bit of Washington Heights. It's the 71st Assembly District, Part B, and our part there's two, A and B. So you can see my location, Esplanade Gardens in the Valley in Harlem, and up in Washington Heights, but Harlem, I'll call it, would be Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park, Riverside Drive, from about 140th Street going north to Dyckman, just so that you can kind of see my district. Diverse, of course. As I listen to the conversation, it takes me back so many years in being county committee, and you guys explained it eloquently, because when I first became county committee, I was drafted not knowing what the job called for. And during that period, I'm talking about, wow, in the 90s, there weren't vacancies in Senate or Assembly unless you lost your election, you were voted out. Where we see now, there is movement from one elected position to another, which has created a vacancy. And that's initially what the county committee was pulled together to do would be to nominate the replacement, as we see in the 68 and what we'll be seeing in the 72nd, which is Washington Heights Inwood, which is this month, February. Many of us who've been working in the business for 10, 15, 20, 50 years were drafted as being county committee, and only when there was a vacancy did you receive a card to come to a meeting and to vote on the candidate or candidates and be lobbied. When I look at our communities today, I think about the issues that plague us, that get us interested in politics. The meat and potatoes that change our lives. Immediately, gun violence. These are issues that, as we try to solve it, mental illness, bring it to the attention of our electeds, bills to fund opportunity for us to work. COVID is taking a U-turn into what we would normally be doing. We're afraid for our health, our children, vaccine or not vaccine, hoping that we all listen to the science and the professionals and make a decision, whether it's to be vaccinated to save our lives, and also what it's doing to the medical community. I think about this every day, every waking moment, and encouraging all of us to put our minds together, have conversations, go into action to solve problems. We have so many veterans. I'm one, but in my club, Tioga Carver Democratic Club, we have members who are in their 90s and still working, volunteering, advocating to solve problems. Some of them still petition, work on the polls, and we need to change that narrative so that the next generation behind us step up, become interested, and we can pass the baton over.
Thank you.
That is my thinking and my dream and my prayer.
Thank you so much, the Honorable Ernestine L. Temple. I do have April hasn't had a chance to ask a question.
Could someone mute, please?
Yeah, can someone mute? April has a question for our speakers. April, are you available? April?
Hi, I'm actually her sister. I'm a teacher, and I run my own summer program. I pay out of pocket, and I teach actually what Mr. Patrick was talking about earlier. I teach most of those things to my young kids over the summer, and I'm thinking of ways that I can have more funding so that I can do more things with my students. I do everything out of my pocket. I buy everything. I save just so I can run my program. So yeah, that's pretty much what my question is in the chat. Do anyone know of any type of funding for teachers or educators who are doing these things out of pocket? A lot of what we want to give our children, we end up volunteering most of the time, you know. but I feel like there is funding out there. You just have to ask the right people and know, what you're
I
asking.
would be honored, sorry to interrupt. I would be honored. I'm learning the chat business, but I don't mind sharing my number. 917.
Thank you. 917
865
865
5548.
5548.
Let's talk about opportunity. Let's talk about funding, advocacy, and also partnering. A piece of pie is better than no pie. Mentoring. There are quite a few community-based organizations that would like to share, would like to connect, and brainstorm how we can make things happen with a little money and growing opportunity, which can grow into big funding opportunity, especially if you develop a program, not for profit, because that's how, funding starts. You gotta become a program with a board of directors, a mission statement, and then walk from there. So I would love to have that conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Miss Ernestine.
Also, I put my telephone number, email in the chat, but very quickly, this is for anybody. Feel free to reach out to me at 917-403-5381. That's 917-403-5381. And whatever I could do to help anyone on this panel discussion, please feel free to reach out to me, and whatever I could do to help, I'll try my best to help.
Good evening, everyone. This is Bailey on the call. This is what I was alluding to when I made my announcement about membership. And it's not just about membership. This is about engagement. This is about sharing knowledge, that we all come to the table with some knowledge. And I just want to make sure that we're emphasizing that if you know something, share it with your community, your neighbors, your loved ones. This is what it's all about. I mean, William has put so much stuff in the chat. Ernestine is here. We have speakers here. If you have information, share it. This is how communities grow. And if we don't share that information, we're doing our communities a disservice. I just want to make that announcement.
Okay, guys. So we are close to that time where our session is over, and I want to thank everyone for coming out.
Excuse me, Pamela, can I say something very quickly? Sorry.
Sure.
The information on the chat and the PowerPoint presentation, would that be available to everybody on this discussion?
Yes, I can
Okay,
send
great.
out the PowerPoint to everyone, and also I can, we're gonna have this video online on our YouTube channel. So please, in a week's time, it'll be there. Share it with as many people as you know, because information is power, folks.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you all for coming out today. This was absolutely wonderful. I had the best time. I have our director of organizing who was here assisting quietly, Charles Calloway. Do you have a few words you'd like to share before we sign off?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask this final question for Stanley. So all the county committee members are about, we can sign up people to be county committee leaders in the New York State County right now in June. So we can actually make a campaign to get these young people on the street to become county committee leaders and really kind of like run an academy, if we had the funding correctly, run an academy to get some of these young people to
Great
like,
idea.
to be a part of the
I
political
think
power.
that's absolutely excellent. As I said, the election districts, meaning the geographic boundaries of each
Yes.
county committee district, will be formulated over the next 3 weeks. But you don't have to reside in the actual election district. Well,
Yes.
you don't have to do it this year because it's a redistricting year. So you have a lot more flexibility, but those lines will be known in the next 3 weeks. Board of Elections will have that available. So please stay in touch with Pamela. I will assist her in getting that data for your purposes.
Okay, thank you.
So much. I really appreciate that, Mr. Schlein.
My pleasure.
Okay, any other last quick questions? We have literally 2 minutes before we're supposed to sign off.
Ernestine, we love you.
Yes, we do.
Pamela, will there be a follow-up to this?
Yes, next week we're gonna have how to get on the ballot, and I'm gonna sneak in a little bit about redistricting because, you know, that affects the whole petitioning part of getting on the ballot. So folks, if you know people who are planning on running for office, please send them our way. We can all learn and work together. And I would encourage all of you to come back next week, Tuesday. We're going to try to do the series every month, but it's only going to be once a month. This month, we're doing it twice a month because there was just so much going on politically. We needed to do 2 weeks, but thereafter, it's going to be once a month.
Yeah, this was great. I liked it. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Pamela, you deserve a great standing ovation for this, you know, putting this together and doing it back to back. So just, you know, everybody, if you could just put a little thumbs up in the chat or just give a thumbs up on your screen and say just thank you, because Pamela, you did a great job.
Yeah, I'd like to say something, and I learned a lot today. Any art, we can find a way, even those things, the knowledge you give, can we teach those kids like a high school or junior high school to teach them there to prepare them for the future?
That is a plan that is in the works.
Believe me,
Yeah,
will be
definitely
great. It will be great for them because 99% where I'm living at have no clue what you're talking about here. Maybe they vote for someone, but they don't have no clue what's going on with the district. So I thought we're supposed to start the beginning since at my age, like high school, junior high school, and then to coming up. I think it will be great.
But I'm also going to charge all of you to do the same. You know, you're going to receive a copy of the slide deck. So take that slide deck and share it with your groups in your neighborhoods. Or when you get the link to our YouTube page, share that on your Facebook page or your Instagram page. So that the more we share this information, the more we empower our communities.
Thank you so much, Pamela.
Thank you, guys. So it was my pleasure to be here, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.